National Guard?
That's what he's assuming. And there's 51 opportunities for it.
Yes, but that still does not
Supposedly
mean
they're going to every state capital as well as DC.
But as long as it doesn't go out of hand, it should be still possible to contain it.
Well, the obvious question is, once people start shooting at each other, how do you keep it from getting out of hand? And what exactly would that mean?
I mean, by definition, aren't you saying that there will be a certain number of people who are pro revolution, and then there will be National Guard. National Guard should be able to overcome them pretty quickly.
In theory,
Depends
but
on how many there are in any one place.
and it depends, I think, on how many people are shooting. Because the first shots are probably, hopefully, not going to be organized where they multiple people start shooting simultaneously. The assumption is that somebody, for whatever reason, whether it be on the National Guard side or on the protester side, feels the need to shoot at somebody. They're being hit with a flagpole or a fire extinguisher or whatever, or the protesters feel they're being forced back with too much violence, and somebody shoots. And when you hear a gun, somebody else might shoot. And it doesn't stop unless people are absolutely organized and prepared to listen to someone who's in authority. That's the fear. So I'm hoping that there will be a little, that people will be reasonable on both sides. And the protesters can say what they feel they have to say, and there won't be any damage to life or property.
Well, Trump has said he wants no violence. He wants peace. That is his latest statement. So, given that his latest statement says peace, doesn't that carry weight with his followers?
One would hope.
Oh, okay.
Well,
at the same, well, all you have to do is remember that for the past month, more than a month, 5 weeks, he's been saying that things have been stolen from everybody. And that's the basis of the protests. Excuse me. So when when they do that, some people are pissed, and some people have a gun in their hand because they might have to use it. I think a lot of people go out there with the idea that it's just for show. But when the shooting starts, do you duck or shoot back? It's scary. If we survive this, then maybe we have a chance as a country to avoid the worst of the immediate reaction. Maybe not. One thing's for sure, Putin will be very happy if we start shooting at each other, because now we're off the world stage.
Yes, but does that is the prediction that given that there is so much intelligence from FBI, would you predict that they are prepared this time or not?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
No, what I'm saying is, given that their FBI has put out so much information, it looks like they probably are more prepared than what they were a few days ago.
True, but I would imagine so are the protesters.
Oh, okay.
It kind of depends, I think, on what the intention is. If the groups come down and they come down prepared to defend themselves, that's pretty scary. If they come down to protest and say they ain't going to get pushed around, then we have a chance, I think.
Mhm. So, so you, excuse me. What you are then saying is the whole program is scheduled before the inauguration to disrupt the whole process.
It's starting Saturday and Sunday, as I understand it,
Oh, okay.
and the inauguration is Wednesday.
So if that happens, then of course, then your prediction is right. It can slip badly.
And the problem is the people, many, I'm sure there are some who are not, but many of these people think of themselves as on the side of right. They see themselves as being heroes defending America. As a result, their motivations, you have trouble dealing with them because they think they're doing the right thing. The guy, I keep coming back to this, but it's very, very similar. The guy who went into the Washington, D.C. pizza shop, armed, prepared to free all the children who were in the basement. He was a hero in his own mind.
Mm-hmm.
He was wrong, but he was a hero. And we could be facing exactly the same thing. And to tell you the truth, I don't remember if he actually fired any shots when he went into the pizza shop. But
I don't remember either. Maybe Paul remembers that.
Say again?
I don't remember. I don't remember. You know, in Massachusetts, they're going to have 500 National Guard by the State House. They sent 500 to Washington and 500 are going to be in Boston. And so I think the question is, when will it happen? Because even though there are 500, assuming they have 8-hour shifts, you know, that's only, 167 at any one time. And the other guys, they can wake up and bring them out, but it's fewer than you think. And the same thing that happens with with DC. I don't know if you saw the picture this morning, but they had troops on every street in the general area, and they were only about 6 feet apart. And there were, thousands of them. I'm talking about the troops, but they were all standing, so they're not going to stand for 24 hours a day, 7 days, for 5, 6, 7, 8 days. So they'll have to do some, tag team type of thing. And
well, you also have the DC cops who are available to help as well, plus a number from the Capitol Police. The real issue is if they just want to invade the Capitol, they would go in at night when it's more difficult to see them, where they might be able to slip by, or maybe have somebody allow them to go in through the barricades. If they just want to protest, then they're going to do it during the day when it's a lot easier to control things. So again, it depends on what's the motivation, and also the motivation of the majority, as I was saying before, is not necessarily the motivation of everyone. They might, there might be somebody who really wants to start a massive confrontation and get the whole crowd, however many thousands they're going to be, involved in it, because everybody's seen as somebody who wants to kill Pence and kill and take Pelosi hostage or whatever. That's if that's how the radical, if they're looking for revolution, that's how they would do it. They'd start something in the same way as they did with the Black Lives Matter thing. The vast majority of people, there were a few who wanted to burn stuff down or burn a trash can or something, but the vast majority just wanted to protest. But suddenly, because of the few, they got themselves dragged into something that was never intended.
I mean, look at the protests in Portland. Portland protests, for example. You have a continuing problem. I don't know if that is controlled now or not. In Oregon.
I haven't heard anything about Portland in a while, so I can't tell you.
I mean, that's what people keep bringing up. How come that is still there? There is Antifa and there are all other groups who are trying to burn and maim and kill. So maybe they will take revenge in Washington.
Well, that's propaganda.
That's propaganda?
Yeah, Antifa is nonviolent.
But that's what they
As
bring up
with every
time.
other group, there are going to be individuals who see themselves or declare themselves to be part of the bigger movement whose goals are different. Antifa is not a single organization, I agree with you, but there are certainly some out there who might want to burn down the society in the same way as on the right, with the goal of when it comes back better.
So you think there are anarchist elements all over the place, ready to burn?
Yeah, I think there is. There certainly is on the right, and on the left, I'm sure there is as well.
But I would have imagined FBI is keeping a tab on all that, but obviously maybe not.
As much as they can. Some of these people are smart enough to know that you don't get on Facebook and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Joe's going to go over to the front gate and create a commotion, and I'm going to climb the fence over on the left. As a matter of fact, I would be really embarrassed for these people if that was what they were doing.
So you would think that,
although there's some real idiots out there, when they get on Facebook and they say their name and what they did and they show their trophies, maybe they think Trump's going to pardon them.
well, I think there are people who still think that if they do certain things, Trump will come back and be the new savior. I kind of wonder about that kind of argument when you watch what people write in their stuff.
I missed a little of that.
No, what I'm saying is there are people who still think that Trump can still take it over if they do certain things, if the supporters do certain things. But I don't know, unless they do something violent, what is going to happen.
As Trump, hiccups, as Trump said last week, you don't get anywhere being weak. As Giuliani said, trial by combat excuse me, by combat. And I'm sure Giuliani didn't mean go invade the Capitol. Is hyperbole. But that kind of language, untempered, encourages some people who might otherwise not get involved. I think that's part of the problem. All society depends upon the individuals saying there's some rules. They may be different for everybody, but there's some rules that you don't break. And the few individuals who break them, the rest of society comes down and protects itself. But when the people who are willing to break the rules for their own reasons, whatever they may be, get in charge or become a large percentage of the population, society breaks apart. It doesn't work.
I mean, when you have the leaders say certain things, that is what can create a havoc. The leadership, if leadership says things which can actually excite people,
Yes.
in a bad way. I
or
mean,
in a good way. I mean, again, it depends on where you're sitting.
yes, but if you look at it, leaders have a way of using words to excite people.
Yes.
And as you said, depending upon which side of fence you are, it looks good or it looks bad. But if they knock you off of the fence, then you say, well, it was bad.
Right. Look at Iran. Remember when Iran had these tremendous demonstrations against the Revolutionary Council a few years back for a variety of different reasons. And they were organizing using social media. And I think most of the people in this country said, isn't it wonderful? There are ways to get around censorship. There's ways to get around control of the news. Well, shoes on the other foot.
Yeah, but is it a good idea for the social media to be censored? That's another question that is quite obvious. Censorship of social media. Who is really determining what is good?
Right.
And should that be really allowed? Or not, allowed is a wrong term. Should that be happening?
I personally, Robert Krieg, is frightened about the idea of banning people and banning speech and etc. because it can turn around. Tomorrow, Zuckerberg's out and
Spicer
Bannon
is in.
Yeah, and suddenly the shoe's on the other foot. And I'm very sympathetic to Zuckerberg, who's tried very, very hard for a long, long time to avoid what ultimately they had to do with Trump. And it's really very, very frightening to me that to cure the disease, you're going to kill the patient.
Yes, it is. From what I also look at, I do have a problem with this suppression of the media, but I don't know what is the other solution at this time. Is there a solution other than banning people from the social media? And then, as you said, it is kind of a very difficult situation. And I also personally would like to see no social media, no ban. But then if we are at the wit's end, what are we supposed to do?
And again, I'm sorry.
Social media, it depends on what you see or hear or read in social media, because you tend to pay attention only to the things that agree with you. So banning one or the other is, I think it's a waste of time, and you really should ban basically all talk of a certain type of subject. Social media is for who is it? I think it's intended for social type things. How are your children? And what are you doing this weekend? I don't think it's the right. It's not the right place for political talk.
Well, I'll ask you a question and think about it before you answer. Is sitting around on local cable access TV talking about the political future of the country and the physical future of the country, is that appropriate? At some point, people talk about what they're interested in, unless they're afraid of the repercussions. And being afraid of the repercussions is what supposedly we're trying to avoid.
Well, on television, you do have some kind of rules of engagement. They do have limits, whereas in social media there is no limit.
Right.
Facebook and that kind of social media, Facebook, Twitter. If you get on TV and say and libel some slander somebody, slander is spoken. If you slander somebody, then you face a lawsuit. Whereas if it's on Facebook and it's under a fictitious name, there's no way of doing it. And
actually, I don't think that's true. If you put on Facebook, libel in this case, I would imagine, something that destroys my character and being done for not because you particularly believe it, but because you want to hurt me in some way, I can sue you for libel. What I can't do on Facebook is sue Facebook. They're just a platform that, in theory, has no control over what the people on that platform say, or at least that's the way it used to be. It's obviously changing now.
If they don't have any control, they shouldn't be public. If they have no control over what people are saying, then that medium should not exist. If they own the medium, and there's bad stuff put on the medium, they're responsible. Not only the person that put it there, but they are responsible. They have to look at it before it's put on.
Well, that's why there is this section 230 somewhere, which actually
right.
protects.
It's a protection
Yeah.
of the media. The problem with that is who makes the decision? Who is the one who says you can speak and not somebody else, or you can speak all you want to, but nobody can see it unless we agree with what you're saying? And you can ban somebody, they can ban Trump, and then he signs on as somebody else. He used to do that in New York City when he'd call into the radio. He'd invariably be calling in to say what a wonderful person Donald Trump is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he did that. He was famous for it. That was part of his clown image. It's certainly even easier on Facebook. You just go down to the local coffee shop and you sign on as a user, and you say what you please, and then you go to another coffee shop and say that something else, etc. There's no way to stop it.
So,
You can
so
go
what
after
happens?
the content. You can go after what he typed.
So what happens with a newspaper if they publish something that's libelous?
If they publish it
Slander, excuse me,
under their
slander.
name, then they can in fact be sued for libel. If they quote somebody else, I don't think they're liable. Somebody who knows more about it than I do can check, but I don't think they're liable if they're quoting somebody else. In other words, reporting what's been said.
But if you remember in the early 80s, I forgot who it was, they had put some reporters in jail because they refused to divulge the contacts. And I forgot, actually, there were a couple of them, they were in jail. There was a woman and then there was a man also. I forgot who they were, but I remember that was something.
I remember what you're talking about. I couldn't tell you who the people were.
Yeah,
and it was a major court case that ultimately the Supreme Court basically said freedom of the press is vital, but there are limits, and that's where the yelling fire in a crowded theater came from. That would have been in the 20s or 30s, I think.
Yeah, but that was
I'm not
much
sure.
much before I was there. But this was in the 80s, much more,
Yeah,
much.
I remember it happening. I don't remember the
Yeah,
circumstances.
I completely forgot the story, but it was here.
Well, actually, this is something relatively recent. The Pentagon Papers.
Yes.
And there was a massive blowback, and ultimately it was allowed by the Supreme Court. I'm sure that there are some people on multiple sides of the aisle who would like to re-litigate some of that.
I mean, there was a talk of how, I forgot the name of the guy, not Ginsburg, the person who leaked those papers, the Ellsberg? No,
Ellsberg, yes.
Ellsberg, yes. So that's what there were actually people who thought he was a traitor, and they wanted him shot and feathered and killed and whatever.
Right.
Well, the current thing is WikiLeaks.
Yes, current thing is WikiLeaks. That's another topic actually related to this. Should WikiLeaks be brought to what we would call justice? What is his name? Assange. Should Assange be brought to United States and put in jail?
Yeah.
Well, he not while he's under that embassy protection.
Is he? No, he's not. Is he in the embassy still? No.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was out.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
No, I thought he was. I could be wrong. I thought he was in Britain somewhere. Maybe I'm wrong. And he has a few.
Yeah. Assange?
Yeah.
He may be in England.
And the last I read is
he was in a South American embassy in London.
Yes.
Okay. I do know that he was thrown out of the original place he was given asylum for a variety of reasons, including the fact he wasn't treating the asylum where he was with any kind of dignity.
Uh-oh.
Which probably means he's dealing with some psychiatric problems, which is not surprising under the circumstances. But I'm not quite sure where he is. I do know that he's still, if you will, at large. He's in an asylum somewhere.
But is WikiLeaks still functional or it's gone?
I believe it's still there. I don't know that.
because that created a lot of problems for Obama and all the other people at that time.
Or Hillary Clinton.
Or Hillary Clinton, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other piece to this. Was that also part of the big plot, or we are not supposed to know that?
I personally believe what happened was Putin, to weaken America, encouraged Trump to run for president and did what he could to help them. Nobody assumed he was going to win, but they figured that the result would be a divided country. He won.
And further divided the country.
I'm sorry.
You said he won, and I said, and further divided the country.
Yeah.
More than Putin thought.
And I'm sure that Putin is very happy with that. His ultimate goal, it took a little while, but his ultimate goal was to weaken America and keep them off the world stage so that he could, at minimum, dominate Europe. Using similar tactics, by the way. So given that, he's very happy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what I was going to add to that is maybe that is kind of he is playing revenge game what the Western nations did to Soviet Union. He is now playing a revenge game to make sure United States, the big one there, is broken up.
True.
And he will sit back in the Caucasus and laugh aloud.
Yeah, I believe that you're absolutely correct. The problem, of course, is that when you let the dragon out of the cage, you can't always control what it is that dragon does. And I think in part, Putin decided that Trump was a little too dangerous. He likes him around, but I'm not sure that he likes him being in charge. You know, he could do something stupid like bomb Iran.
Yeah. He could still do that.
A war that he can't control.
Yeah, he
World
can
War
still
I
do
is a
that.
perfect example of that. It started, somebody shot the heir to the Austrian throne.
Oh, you mean World War II?
No, World War I.
World War I. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
The Duke guy, Duke
The
Ferdinand, Archduke Ferdinand.
And it could have ended, but the Austrians wanted to get their empire back, so they made demands on the Balkan countries that the Balkan countries could not or would not, or some combination thereof, go along with. So Austria decided, as I'm sure they would have been happy to do anyway, to invade. France hated Germany, so they basically baited Germany into supporting Austria, and England, which was afraid of Germany's attempt to field a major navy, came in to stop Germany, and within a couple of weeks, the world was at war.
Just because, I mean, this is fascinating when you read through it, but it looks like they needed an excuse, essentially, and Duke Ferdinand provided that.
Right. And maybe he shouldn't have. Everybody blames the guy who shot him, but maybe he shouldn't have been there anyway.
Yeah.
This was not part of the Austrian Empire anymore.
Wow.
So,
well,
what I'm afraid of is the same kind of thing can happen here. We're primed for it. At some point, people have to step back and start thinking about what exactly do we hope to accomplish that's possible. I'm sure a lot of people want to have Trump back in the White House, or maybe some of them say, all we need to do is have the election again.
Yes. Well, that's what.
And the fact that it's been litigated over and over again, that votes have been recounted over and over again, that a lot of the things that they claim happened have demonstrably been not true. Maybe they'd be happy, okay, we'll have the election again. I would say at this point, if they had the election again, Biden would win by a hell of a lot more than he did before.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's what do you truly hope to accomplish that is doable? Because I want to be able to fly like Superman.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of
And
interesting. The guy that wrote the book for Trump, he had been interviewed a number of times on MSNBC in the prior years, and one of the questions was asked, what would happen, if he were, at that time he was the president. What if he loses the re-election? And the guy said, "Oh, he'll deny it to the end and claim it was false. It was a false election. He was cheated out of it." He said that a couple of years ago.
I mean, that's what Trump actually.
Everything that Trump is doing now, he predicted would happen. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he did. He started doing that even before the elections were started. He said they would be rigged, they will be fake, and all that, and it has come to pass, as they say.
And he said that in 2016 as well.
Yeah. Then also he said that.
When you have somebody who cannot or will not, or some combination thereof, accept defeat.
He's incapable of accepting defeat.
And he's gone through life essentially screaming like a baby because he's got a big name and a major amount of money behind him. Sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses, but he can always sort of figure out a way to make it look like it didn't happen. He went bankrupt in Atlantic City, but he was able to sell his casinos to somebody for pennies on a dollar. And so now he can say, well, no, I didn't go broke. I just sold them. Trump Airline is the remains of the bankrupt Eastern Airlines.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
But it's still there. I just renamed it and reduced the number of planes in the fleet rather significantly.
Is it still running?
Well, there's still a Trump airline. The only person he flies is Trump and his family and business associates.
I see. Okay. Well,
it's not an airline that has paying passengers, but it's got a big Trump sign on it.
yeah, that's how he flew in. Remember?
Yeah. Right. Until he had Air Force One. And I'm sure he would have loved to have repainted Air Force One to have a big Trump on it. Somehow or another, he wasn't able to do that.
What I was thinking is maybe one of the outcomes of these old farts should be to set up an organization called Sit Back, or something. What you said earlier, setback. Yeah. No, sit back. What did you say?
Step aside and what was the second part? The part that got him in trouble.
Yeah.
In any case, and stand by.
Yeah. No, but what you said is we could have an organization from these old farts to make people to sit back and look at situations rather than go and shoot at each other.
Okay.
Why don't we just rename it Think?
Well,
Think
that
before
is
you act.
hard. Yeah, that is hard. You have to force people to do things
Yeah.
because thinking is
There's
out of the window.
a significant percentage of the population that is incapable of doing that.
Well, that's the problem actually. I mean, you have to recognize 70 million people voted for this person. So not and all of them are human beings. They
Yeah.
believe something and they argue for it and they are ready to die for it. So you have to give them credit for it. So the
Well,
question
Okay.
is, how do you bridge the gap?
here's the credit. Here's the credit you give.
Yeah.
IQ is a normal curve,
Yes.
and half of the people are below normal.
Yes. I mean, you are looking at the 67%, 68.
No, not the 67. I'm looking at the plus and minus 50.
Well, I'm saying you are looking at the middle and you throw the other ones into the other part. I mean, I understand that, but the question is how. Well, this is interesting because the U.S. military, I was told, does not consider candidates whose IQ is below 70. Is that true or not?
Probably.
I think it's higher than 70, but yes, there's a lower lower limit.
Because I was told it's not exactly IQ, it's some kind of a military index, and that falls in that range. So if they have recognized it, that means there is no way they can fix that. So what can we do?
Well, again, it's if you think about it, if you improve the IQ of the whole population, you will still have 50% of the population below quote
Yes.
average.
Yes.
I think the problem, you can't say that if you're a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter, you're automatically a moron.
No, this is exactly what I was trying to point out, because
Okay.
they are not morons. They are
No.
70 million people who are, a lot of them are educated, a lot of them have gone to Ivy League schools. Look at Ted Cruz, look at Holly. I mean, there are examples galore, and that's why you can't just dismiss them. That's all I'm saying. There has to be some common ground. That's what I was saying. Maybe contribution of these old parts ought to be set up something to make people sit down together and have a dialogue.
I agree, and I've tried to do that several times on old farts. When I can get a conservative, occasionally I will do something I call common ground.
Yes.
We'll pick a problem, any problem, doesn't matter, that we both think needs to be fixed. And then we decide what would be an improvement, a practical improvement to whatever that problem is. And if we can agree as to what might be an improvement, then we talk about techniques and what's too far, etc. And that's what Congress is supposed to be. That's the whole point of Congress. And the Senate with the filibuster is supposed to make sure that the majority, if it be 51 votes, can't just ignore the other side. They have to at least listen to them and moderate to some extent what it is they're trying to do. So I'm somebody who doesn't believe in getting rid of the filibuster. On the other hand, if the filibuster is nothing more than a board that you push across the door saying nobody can go through this door, end of story, nobody goes through it, then it's no longer does its function. So everybody, democracy depends, and we've learned this in the last 4 years, on everybody agreeing to a certain minimum set of facts, and that there are rules, and that those rules should not be violated. When the rules are violated, Trump says, there should be no oversight. I am the president and I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, and nobody can say no. Then unless there's a way for Congress or the courts to force him to do otherwise, then we're in a dictatorship. Whether it's a benevolent dictatorship, in other words, the dictator's doing what I want them to do, or it's an evil dictatorship, the opposite. It's a dictatorship.
I'm asking questions here. Looks like I shouldn't be doing this.
Go ahead.
I was gonna point out that we have the possibility of impeachment hearing in the Senate, but after Biden takes office. Does that mean it will be controlled by Democrats and then they can proceed, or does that mean retroactively by this Mitch McConnell will come back with his hammer and say no?
No, it will be Democrats. The new Congress has Democratic control. Whether all the Democrats will support whatever it is that they're trying to do is a different story. But the new majority leader will be Schumer. But McConnell still has the filibuster. Remember,
yes.
12 years ago, when Obama came in, there were 60 Democratic, I think there were 60 Democratic senators.
Yes.
So McConnell fought everything, literally everything. And if there was something that wasn't done exactly the way all the Democrats would want, then it didn't happen. And so individual Democrats had all kinds of power.
But does that mean, according to what you think, does that mean there is a chance that he can really be convicted if they can get some Republicans out towards them?
Yes. It takes 17.
Oh, 17.
Yeah, it has to be 2/3, 67.
Right. So there are 50 Democrats, assuming they all vote for conviction. You need 17 Republicans.
So it's not going to happen then?
Not clear. I think it's unlikely, but it's not clear that it can't happen. It's not like it was a year ago. There's already several who have indicated that they'd be opening to listen, including McConnell, by the way. As a result, it's possible. Whether it would be a good thing or not is another question. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that McConnell doesn't want to see Trump back in the Republican Party again, and he'd love to be able to get him out of the Republican Party.
Right, but in order to do that, he's got to keep his hands clean, or he loses critical support that he needs to accomplish whatever else he wants to do. So letting the Democrats do it is fine, but when it comes down to convicting him in the Senate, not clear that he'll necessarily go along with it, although he may not block it. I think the better chance would be in New York and DC and a few other places where the state or the local people go after him.
Well, those are court cases.
Those are parallel things. They're not one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I totally agree.
You're gonna go after him no matter what.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting thing because I
think they have New York has his tax returns that they think of are wrong.
I believe they did get them or are going to get them.
No,
I haven't
they have
necessarily
them.
heard that they
They
chose.
have New York tax equipment, tax returns.
I didn't hear you.
New York State has Trump's New York tax returns.
Right. And I
that's why
think
he
they,
moved to Miami. So he didn't have to file this year in New York.
but I think they asked, New York also asked for the federal returns. And I think the
Right,
court
just
said they could have it.
they asked for the federal returns so that they could compare one against the other.
Right. And also to compare what Deutsche Bank is supposed to provide them, which is what Trump told Deutsche Bank various things were worth.
Yeah.
I think the
Deutsche
goal
Bank,
there is to get him on tax evasion
yeah.
or bank
Deutsche
fraud
Bank
or
said,
some combination.
Did you
Say
hear
again?
that today Deutsche Bank said they won't do business with Trump anymore?
Yeah, I just heard that.
But what does that actually mean in practical terms?
What it means is he has they can't change the payments that he owes, but they're not going to give him any more money.
So,
Which is
kind of fun because I think it was like 10 years ago, he had personally guaranteed some stuff. It went bust. Deutsche Bank sued to get their money. He sued them back and claimed that they caused the 2008 recession. And somehow or another, a couple of years later, they were lending him money again, huge amounts of money, even though that he hadn't paid what he owed the last time, and in fact sued them. So I think one of the problems that may come out of this is money laundering.
but
Yeah.
That the reason why Deutsche Bank would lend him money is the money was being provided by somebody else. It wasn't their money.
Oh, I see. But at the same time, wouldn't the Deutsche Bank also would indirectly be guilty because they were providing money to him?
I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that. I would imagine that if they claim
Bob,
it was
clean.
Huh?
They're a bank.
Yeah, they lend money.
No,
That's
but
what they do.
Yeah,
but
they're a bank. They're not. There's no trouble whatsoever for them.
So even if they got the money from so-called other sources,
Right.
If they knew that the money was dirty, then I would imagine they're liable for money laundering. Not clear that it could be proved. I don't know enough.
But
I think it's.
once
I
they have the
personally
money,
think
it's
that's
no
what
longer
happened.
dirty. Bob,
oh, I see. Okay,
once a bank has money, it's no longer dirty. It's clean money.
it's clean money. Okay.
That's not
A
clear.
little cynical here. I've
In
been
any
talking
case,
to my son.
I think that Trump's real problems are going to be after he gets out, and I think this whole idea of the impeachment is to just punish him for the sake of punishing him. If the net result is that the new Congress comes in and starts passing laws saying the executive can do X but not Y, or if the executive doesn't inform Congress in a timely manner of various things, then he's liable and I assume can be impeached. Or maybe there's some other thing you could do. Maybe you could have the guy be fined. Certainly, if it comes out of Trump's pocket, he would think twice.
But at the same time, while this is going on, everybody at this time, not everybody, the opposition at this time is really bringing up a lot of stuff about Hunter Biden. They say that this is really not potluck. They really a treasure trove for for them to really sink the presidency. I don't know what is in there, but Giuliani claims that there's a really big stuff in there.
Yeah. And I don't know enough. I question the source. We know that Giuliani was running around looking for things and threatening people and bribing people. Maybe he actually found something. I don't know. Uh, if I thought there was a fair investigation, I might go along with it and say, okay, here, take 3 months and do a reasonable job and tell us what you've learned. Uh, I in a new administration, maybe that's possible. I don't know. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left. What is your predictions of what's going to happen in the next, let's say, 100 days? That includes the inauguration and the protests, but also what's going to happen legislatively when Biden actually becomes president.
Well, from my standpoint, I'm looking forward to his stimulus package he has just announced, and hope that goes through, and so that they can provide money to the schools, and so that they can gear up to have schools in person and provide stimulus checks to people who need them.
Okay. I think the stimulus package has a chance. Um, I'm not sure if the Republicans will allow it. It would be a hard thing to sell that this is a bad thing. You'd have to start doing it based on cost.
Yes.
And I'm sure that Biden at some point in the very near future will also go in and try to get a tax plan that will cover part of the cost. But yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
For his tax plan. I have suggestions for his tax plan, but
yeah,
but that's another time. Does the filibuster still exist?
Yes. It's the only places where it doesn't exist absolutely are not approval of judges, I believe approval of cabinet secretaries, and reconciliation, budget reconciliation. There may be others, but those are the ones I'm familiar with.
So McConnell could filibuster everything right now.
Yes, he did that in 2008, and so in theory he could do it now.
Why couldn't why couldn't the Democrats filibuster the tax cut?
I think it was done under budget conciliation, but I'm not sure.
What I was actually, this is an interesting question I have all the time, but I have no answer. Why is it that the bills that are made are not clean bills? Just like I have a bill to fund Navy, just Navy. I have another bill to fund the post office. Rather than mix the two up and then give some money to FedEx and some money to Spitami and somebody to else and a little bit to post office.
It's actually something we could talk about in the future, but basically what it says is, in order to get Joe's vote, I have to give him something that he really wants. So I'll put that in the bill. Joe will now vote for the larger thing, and everybody's more or less happy.
So they should stop that.
That's how some very, very important things get into the law. When they tried to do the new stimulus, yes, they threw in some things that didn't have anything directly to do with COVID.
Yes, that's what people were complaining about.
Because people needed or felt that they wanted to have these other things, okay, we'll give it to you, give me your vote.
What a sad situation.
I think what happened was they combined COVID with the funding for the next 3 months.